Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual celebration number 50. It has been a year, and I'm just so glad that you are part of our virtual community. I'm very excited to what we're offering you today with Lee and Tim and Paul and Cahill and Deline. I think that you're going to truly enjoy it. So make yourself comfortable, sit with someone you love, and enjoy our experience.
Driving in a car or in a cinema, you're probably gonna hear a song today. You're singing like a star to the soap bar, and nothing can go wrong today. 'Cause there's a remedy in every melody to all the trouble we have to face. It's like a best friend from the high end to the bass. So let the music play to liven up another day. Don't wanna hear what the world's gotta say. Let the music play my sorry worries away, 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 away. Everywhere you go, you take a stereo. You never know when you'll need it there, 'cause it reminds you of the times you didn't really need to care. But now we're living in the rhythm, man, this prison's hard to break. You got the music so you can use it to escape. Just let the music play to liven up another day. Don't wanna hear what the world's gotta say. Let the music play my sorry worries away, 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 away. Well, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life moving to the beat. Come on, nothing in the world can hold me down or keep me in my seat. Come on, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life moving to the beat. Come on, nothing in the world can hold me down or keep me in my seat. I like my rock and roll and my new soul, a sweet symphony for me. A little country jazz or something funky as anything just sets me free. I listen to those clever musos, 'cause no one ever knows like they do. And when I'm home alone, I try to make a song, 'cause I wanna know it too. I let the music play to liven up another day. Don't wanna hear what the world's gotta say. Let the music play my sorry worries away, 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 away. I let the music play. I let the music play. I let the music play my sorry worries away, 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 fade away, 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 fade away.
Welcome everyone to the Hilltop Spiritual Center's Sunday celebration. My name is Paul, and I'm your prayer practitioner for today. Let us now begin with a spiritual mind treatment, invoking that one mind, that presence that surrounds each and every one of us. For there is one life, that life is God, that life is my life now. It is every one of our lives, and it is a creative force that moves through each and every one of us, in thought, in word, and in deed. For it is a flow like a divine brook that moves through each and every one of our experiences, creatively lifting us up in our imaginations, in our minds, in our hearts, and in our being itself. And so I give thanks for this one life. I give thanks for this wonderful celebration that we are embarking on today. And know that by this wonderful power that we all express ourselves with, that truly all is well. I let go and let God, and so it is. And the reading runs thus. One principle must make the universe a single complex living creature. One from all. Plotinus. And so it is. Find yourself in a comfortable position where you are calm and at ease. Rest in that subjective power of mind. That creative power of the universe. The subjective power of the mind and the creative power of the universe are one and the same. Feel and know that mind. That is a conscious state by which is spirit. Whether it is human or God, individual or universal. Mind, the law of cause and effect. You have the power from that vantage point to change any effect by a creative relationship to that fundamental law. You are that which is formless, pure creative potential.
We are seekers, meeting each fleeting moment in time with movement. The sublime alignment between my mind, soul, and music causes a clarity that counts out chance and casts shadows of doubt upon coincidence. If you only look around, you see you're surrounded by signs, source-given directions. But way too many times, my brothers are blind to the evidence, drowning in decadence. Attention, Earth residents. The boundaries surrounding me are made to be broken, possibilities begging to get bust open. So put out your hands and don't you dare be scared. Even if you have no hope and you're not prepared to face this new reality, bliss awaits undoubtedly. Remember, the light that shines outside of the cave can only grace the eyes of the brave. The fear inside will let you die, but only the wise can be saved. He who feels it knows it. He who does not calls it a lie. But try to control your pride, because humble hearts are the ones who's born to fly. We're warriors who swarm the skies, so say goodbye to that normal life.
So this entire year, we've been following a theme called We Make the Path by Walking. Actually, that's a book by an author by the name of Brian McLaren, which I just truly enjoy. But we sort of adopted it and massaged it and worked it to our own personal need. Because this broadcast that we are doing is marking the 1 year anniversary where literally all our lives moved from some form of order to this extensive disorder that we're all in. And as we are waiting for this new order to emerge. And so making the path by walking means that we are in uncharted waters. And that the point of this is not to try to figure out how to turn around and go back to an old normal, which in reality didn't serve that many people that good anyway. But to engage in that which is wanting to emerge, this new order. But it's been a year. And I think that the pandemic itself has rippled on so many levels. It's a global event, to be sure. It's a national event. It's in our communities. But you know what? It's affecting each and every one of us personally at some level. This pandemic has changed us as individuals. It's changing us as people, as persons. And I think it's on the caliber of other events that have happened. Think about it. Think about where you were when JFK was assassinated. Think about where you were during 9/11. Think about where you were last March and what radically changed for you. Perhaps it was saying goodbye to someone for the last time. Perhaps it was leaving a job or employment. Perhaps it was the beginning of financial hardship. Or perhaps it's the time that you began to spend more time and your values began to change as your focus became more on your family. I know for myself, one of the things, there's so many things that have changed radically, but it was the time when our community closed as a brick and mortar church. And we were called to do this virtual experience. It was the last time I was in my gym. All kinds of things began to happen. And so, it's interesting now when spring is moving as winter is giving way, that this reorder is beginning to emerge as this disorder is beginning to give way. So it's natural that we would take on the path of creativity, that which engages the very best of us, to that which is novel, to that which is organizing, to that which is bringing us to this experience of global consciousness. Because what I think is this, is I think if there's a lesson in this, the lesson is what defines us is not who we are as an individual, but who we are as a community. And even more than that, what we're beginning to understand is the experience of global consciousness. And that's a very, very powerful thing. And it's asking each and every one of us to listen to that echo in our soul that's wanting to express itself in a creative fashion. How each and every one of us is an artist. The philosopher, the metaphysician Ananda Coomaraswamy says this: the artist is not a special kind of person. Rather, each person is a special kind of artist. And I think about that, I think in terms of the reading that Paul gave from the philosopher Plotinus, that says, that the all, that which is in all things, and that all things are part of the all, that everything is interconnected to everything else, and nothing is separate from anything. And oh, by the way, that means you. That infinite intelligence that created the very heavens themselves, that sets in motion the stars, that reveals itself in all creation, that we know, to be loving and good and wise in its own consciousness, it desired you to be an expression of originality, of novelty, and that who you are is an essential part of who we are becoming. You know, Paul Tillich has this quote, and I'm going to translate it to the 21st century, where he says this: we are asked to make of ourselves what we are to become, to fulfill our destiny. And we fulfill our destiny by stepping into our original authentic self. You know, something that Neil Donald Walsh said last week is, we are not defined by who we were. We're not even defined by who we are in this moment. What really defines us is what we are becoming. You know, I think in terms of the ancient Hebrew texts and legends and myths about when Moses is getting ready to go into the land of Egypt, and he is speaking to this burning bush, which is a revelation of the divine, and he says, "Who shall I say sends me?" And the divine voice says to him, "Yahweh Asher Yahweh, I am that I am becoming." So the very name of God is a verb to be. I will be what I will be. And if we are made in the image and likeness of that beingness, then who we will be is what we are becoming, and that begins to define who we are. But you know, something that Soren Kierkegaard says, and I think it's a very salient lesson for us to always pay attention to, is he says this: the most common form of despair that humans experience is of not being who we truly are. And what he goes on to say is he says that the even deeper despair stems from choosing to be someone other than who we are. In other words, to mimic, to live a lie, to outsource the creative force to something or someone else, and to try to live in the image and likeness of that, as opposed to living in the original, novel experience of who we are. And you know, when that begins to happen, we begin to live a lie. And that lie may express itself in many different ways. It may show up as shame. You know, shame is that sense that says there's something innately wrong with me. And so I've got to work extra hard. You know, I've got to create all these smoke and mirrors, because if people found out who I truly was, they wouldn't love me. They would betray me. The other lie is this, is blame. You know, blame is that defense about taking any kind of action in our life, because it says something out there isn't working, and I could express myself if it wasn't for those external things. So it's really shirking our own personal responsibility and outsourcing it onto something or someone beside ourselves. The third lie is this, is regret. And regret is living in a fantasy of trying to return to something that never will be. You know, and isn't that one that we're kind of experiencing today? You know, this whole thing of trying to get back to normal, to try to pretend like nothing happened. We can't do that. And so you know, that's the first thing that's at stake if we outsource who we are. The other thing is our view of the world begins to change. It becomes much more nihilistic, much more negative, that our life and all those things around us begin to constrict instead of expand. And we say things like, you know, the best years are behind us, or it's not possible, or I don't know how it'll never be the same. It'll never work ever again. You know, and that form of perception begins to influence the actions that we take. And if we choose that direction, then what begins to happen is we live in a world of diminishing results. Live in a world of diminishing results. And then the third thing I think that we really, and to me this is the most important one, is that when we give way to this toxic mimic, when we move into this despair of not being who we truly are, we give our power away. We outsource that life force that's moving through us, that wants to express itself in an original and creative and a beautiful and loving way. And we drain it off. It's like we have some mortgage to some mausoleum in the past that we keep paying, and our life then begins to run energetically at a deficit. And you can just simply do the math, you know? If you are giving out or draining off more than you are taking in, it's only a matter of time before we find ourselves emotionally, spiritually, physically bankrupt. You know, when we start draining off this, it begins to show up in our life in dysfunctional relationships or illness or lack or confusion. And so it's more important than ever that we begin to bring that or call back the authority of our life to live that creative flow that's really wanting to move through us. So how do we begin to do this? You know, the author Howard Sasaporta says this: but the desire to become something greater than we already are must also be accompanied by the capacity to envision new and different possibilities. In other words, hoping and wishing for something moves us beyond existing images and models of ourselves. We must have a dream before we can have a dream come true. We must have a vision. We must have an imagination. We must hold a dream before we can manifest it, before it can even begin to come through. And I think when we begin to do that, when we begin to listen to that echo in our soul, when we begin to reignite our imagination, and often the imagination is the first casualty of trauma, of loss, of living in fear, of living in shame or blame or regret. What begins to happen is our imagination begins to flatline. And so more than ever, our work, our spiritual practice is to engage the imagination, because if we are made in the image and likeness, this is where we're going to find our true and authentic self. St. Augustine says this: there is one within me who is more myself than myself. That true self, which is the seat of our power. So how do we begin to do this? How do we re-engage? How do we begin to allow the true self, the inner self, to emerge? We do that through practice. You know, something that we've been talking about in the virtual services all year are the practice. In fact, you may get the practice that comes out usually, I think it's on Wednesday, which is sort of a distilled version of the Sunday talk, and it's about that. And you know, spirituality, I think, can be defined in one word: practice. Practice. Jack Kornfield, who wrote a beautiful book on meditation called A Path with a Heart, says this. He says the essence of meditation, the essence of spiritual practice, is to stay in your seat. Find a time, find a place, find a posture, and sit and watch what begins to come. Engage in a practice and see what begins to emerge. You know, I think in terms of that wonderful song that Lee gave at the very beginning of our celebration about how music washes things away. You know, it carries us to a new place. And so what we're wanting to do is to begin to nurture, to practice mental, soul hygiene, to draw that out so that our creative flow then begins to work for us. And so, you know, like I said, you know, we offer practices every week, and it's kind of like find something that works for you and do that. And I want to offer my 3 practices, maybe my top 3, at least my top 3 this week. And the first practice is this, is brainwashing. So I've told this story before about a friend of mine that was involved in a spiritual community, and he went to his teachers one time and said, you know, I think you're brainwashing me. And they said, We are, because your brain needs washing. And sometimes our brain needs washing. I know for myself, I do this often when needed, when I can see things about myself, when I can see myself getting so consumed with the external that I lose touch with the internal. When I find myself literally physically not able to read or to keep point, to be distracted, that I realize, I need to practice some mental hygiene. I need to brainwash. And how I brainwash best, and here's my first practice, engage in a good book, a novel, not a self-help book, not a manual on how to do something, not 7 easy steps, but literature, a novel. Because when we read a book, it engages our imagination and we become active in it. We begin to visualize things. Things begin to happen. C.K. Chesterton says this: fairy tales do not tell children that dragons exist. Children already know dragons exist. Fairy tales tell children that dragons can be killed. In other words, we read literature not because we believe what we're reading is true, because it tells us that true things are possible in our life. And so that's the first practice, is get a good book that will take you far and engage in that. The second practice is this, is to take on something impossible. Right now, in this age, in this movement of our evolution, what we are experiencing are impossible things. A couple weeks ago, we saw a vehicle land on Mars. And if you were to ask us a decade ago about going to Mars, that would have been impossible. All of us are experiencing what it feels like to live through a global pandemic. And if I had asked any of you a year ago what it would be like to be in a pandemic, what would you say? Oh, that's impossible. That could never possibly happen. A global plan, a national plan? No. And yet here we are. Impossible. Or, for myself, one that is painful but is urging me to expand is, a couple months ago, our nation's capital, one of the most sacred buildings in our nation, the seat of Congress, was taken over during an insurrection. Ask anybody if they would have ever thought this country could have something like that happen. Impossible. It would never happen. So there you are. Impossible things are happening all the time. So what about you? What personally in your life have you said it's impossible to take it on, and to watch how taking on that project changes you? I'm reminded of the speech that John F. Kennedy gave in 1962 about going to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win, and others too. So what is that story that you tell yourself about something that you'd say to yourself, but that's impossible? Yes, but watch what happens to you when you take on something greater than yourself. And then the third is this, and I don't know if the first or the third is my favorite, but it's this: to find at least one day a week that you get to go off leash. The ancient Hebrews called it a Sabbath, where we unplug from all the things that bind us so that we begin to experience a level of freedom, an openness, new opportunities. We can rest. We begin to see new possibilities, and we can listen, and we can hear that still, small voice that reveals itself when we're quiet. And so, find some good literature. Take on something impossible. Take the leash and the collar off and romp and run and play and stay in your seat and listen. Are you listening? And so, to those whom you love and those whom you receive love from, I wish you many, many blessings.
Birds in the trees sing so sweetly. I've come here again for calm and serenity. Just open my senses and feel the earth's heart. I connect with this place in serendipity, 'cause I'm listening to all there is around me. I'm listening to escape the thoughts that have found me. The world has greater secrets than I can even imagine. I'm learning and growing and loving, 'cause I'm listening. The words that I hear are not all that there is. There's so much more left unspoken. Now I will listen from my heart to yours, to realize our lives in synchronicity. 'Cause I'm listening to all there is around me. I'm listening to escape the thoughts that have found me. The world has greater secrets than I can even imagine. I'm learning and growing and loving, 'cause I'm listening. I'm listening to all there is around me. I'm listening to escape the thoughts that have found me. The world has greater secrets than I can even imagine. I'm learning and growing and loving, 'cause I'm listening to all there is around me. I'm listening to escape the thoughts that have found me. The world has greater secrets than I can even imagine. I'm learning and growing and loving, 'cause I'm listening. And I'm listening, I'm listening, and I'm listening.
So there's a couple things coming down the line that I'd like to share with you. The first is this. On March 25th, which is a Thursday evening, I will be teaching a class for 8 weeks called The Path of Self-Mastery. What I'm excited about this class is a couple things. One is the material itself is very excited. If you found that maybe there's a power drain in your life, or there's something that you're wanting to create, and do. Maybe you need a boost. Maybe you need a sense of excitement or inspiration. Then this class is for you. And the other thing is the class is going to be taught in Spanish and English. We will have students from Peru and Mexico and the United States and who knows where else. So it's a great opportunity to really experience what it is to be a global citizen. The second thing that I want to let you know is that on March 28th, that Sunday, our second live service, weather permitting, our first will be the 21st, but on the 28th is our annual meeting. And we're working on making that a really fun experience with special music. We're going to encourage you to bring a picnic lunch, maybe something to drink. It will be outside. It will be enjoyable. It'll be a chance to see people, an opportunity to see the direction that the Hilltop Spiritual Center is headed and to hear your voice. So please mark your calendars for the 21st, our first live service, the 28th, our annual meeting, and March 25th, the Path of Self-Mastery.
And so I just want to go ahead and express my great gratitude for the Hilltop Spiritual Center. As a practitioner and how I found the Hilltop Center, I was at a place where I really didn't understand this idea called the presence of the divine. And I actually got caught up in the superstition of it all. But when I found the Hilltop Center, it really allowed me to see the reality that we are all one, and that this intelligent force can be used creatively as a healing process and as a way to really have a special relationship with the divine. And so I want to share also why I tithe to this center. When I give financially to the center, it supports to provide you with the spiritual tools that allow you as well to find that intelligence, that higher source that is within us all. And so I thank you again for joining us and for your tithes, because it's all reciprocal relationship that we all share. Thank you so much.